Hey there YouTube, this is sjm4306 back with another repair video. This time we're looking at a unit that's from a channel friend, Sanjay. He sent this in and it's one of these like tubular Sony MP3 players. This one in particular is the NW-S205F, and this is like one of the rebranded sports line model ones. The one that I have is silver and it does not have the S2 logo. It's not in that sports line. I'm not sure. I think the one that I have was released earlier. This was one of the later models. But anywho, yeah, these are like really cool tube-like MP3 players, prominently featured in Persona 3 as the main character's MP3 player that he has around his neck pretty much the entire game. Anywho, yeah, he has the same problem that I had. This powers on when you plug it in. It looks like it's charging, but as soon as you unplug it, it's dead. These batteries are pretty old, so yeah, they don't last a super long amount of time. But he was able to order a replacement battery, I believe from the same seller that I bought mine from like a couple years ago. It must be like 3 years by now, I think. 2 or 3 years. Anywho, so we have the battery here. I'm not going to make the same mistake that I made before. We are going to pull the battery from here and check the polarity, because on the one that I ordered quite a while ago, the wires were swapped, and I installed it. Luckily, it didn't damage mine, but I did have to switch them and like resolder and splice them to get it to work. Anywho, yeah, the replacement battery, I believe these are still like about 15 bucks ish, something like that. 10 or 15, I don't know. But yeah, you can see here it's 100 milliamp hours, so it's a tiny little battery, because there's really not that much room in here. So anywho, yeah, so his model is black, mine was silver. But we're gonna start, and in the video that I did last time for this, I didn't show every step because it was a little bit nerve-wracking, if I'm being honest. This time, because I already did this once, I can kind of do it again. So the first step is you need to get this cap on, and it's held on by some adhesive, so it does take a little bit of prying. I'm going to actually have to grab a hairdryer. I'm just realizing I do have a hot air gun, but the lowest that goes down to is still hot enough to possibly damage the plastics, and I don't want to do this because it's not my unit, so I'm gonna be as ginger as possible to minimize any chance of damaging the external case. So I'm gonna grab a hairdryer and we're gonna go through, heat up the adhesive on this, and once we get this cap off, I think you can pull this ring off and get to a point where you can start pulling off this front semi-transparent bit of front lens there. And once we get to that point, we'll figure it out from there. First time I took this apart, I used the service manual, which you can Google for. I'm just gonna try to do this. It's not really blind because I've done this once before, but I did this like 3 years ago. But I want to see if I can do this without referencing the service manual. So give me 1 sec to get that hairdryer. Okay, so I took this like plastic spudger tool. You can kind of get it right under this front edge is the easiest. And as you heat it up from the top, sorry, I'm not really practically able to show the hairdryer. I don't have an outlet near me that has space, so I'm doing it on, the table thing like way behind me, but I don't have a camera set up there. But anyway, this will give you a good idea. You get it in there, you can start lifting, and it's a little bit tight near this ring part. But once you start getting it, it should just kind of pop up. And it helps if this ring slides in and out in 3 positions. If it's all the way back in that rearest position, then that makes it a little bit easier. And there we go. So the ring is out. There's no visible scratches or anything, as long as you use heat and a plastic pry tool. You can also kind of use your fingernails, though it kind of bent mine a little bit. Anywho, we have the adhesive sheet. We're going to leave that attached to this top portion. It goes in a circle around the headphone jack. So we're going to leave that so that we can reattach it. Now, we actually have 2 pins on either side, these little gold pins. You actually need to pry them out. And best way is to take something sharp like a pin while not slipping, being very careful. And you can kind of work it out by prying against the plastic. And then once you get it far enough out, like this, you can just take some tweezers in there and carefully lift them. Do not lose these. And the same thing for the other side as well. And they're just held in by friction, so it should be fairly easy. Let's see. I know there's a screw down on this side. I think that's like one of the last steps to get out, get this out. There is like a little bit of tape there, which I believe you do have to peel off, this sort of anti-static tape. So I believe you have to peel that. So just peel that off. And then this whole cap can slide out now. It's keyed by where the tape, the bit of adhesive for the tape is stuck there. Let me just lock my focus there. There we go. So once you remove that tape though, this can slide right off. We're going to set it to the side. Now this inner ring that rotates, when it's not in the hold position, it'll rotate. That just sort of, I think it can kind of just slide out by this point, maybe. There's a little spring inside. Gonna be careful not to ping that off into oblivion. How did I do this before? Okay, got one foot out. There we go. Okay, so yeah, you can see it has two little legs, and that's what makes it return to the center position. And now we have, this part can just click out. There's a little nub inside, just about see it right there. That's what rubs against this plastic here to give you the clicky detent sort of action there. So, okay, so now we got the top completely off. I think the next step was actually to heat up. There's an adhesive strip that runs all along the perimeter of this black plastic piece. So the back is all aluminum, it's metal. And then there's this kind of clear perspex piece here. That's what we're going to have to try to heat up while prying a little bit. And not this end broke. But yeah, that's what we're trying to break the seal on that so that you can lift it. And then we can gain access. I believe there's some screws or something under there, as well as a screw on the cap. Then the whole body slides out. So I'm going to go back to the hairdryer and reheat this and get this to a point where I can show you what the next step is. Okay, so I tried just with the plastic pry tool. No, you need something a little bit thinner that can get right in between. So I actually did have to use a blade very carefully. Just to separate the layer enough that I can get this tool in and then use this tool to do the prying. So I was luckily able to do this without too much trouble though, and it doesn't look like I caused any damage to the plastic, so that's all good. And let's see, yeah, there's just something's holding this on. Yeah, there's a little bit of adhesive, it looks like. This looks like it's better adhered than mine, so maybe the fact that this was marketed for specifically like sports stuff, looks like maybe the adhesive is a little stronger than mine, or maybe mine was just older. But yeah, it looks like the adhesive on here, there's a rubber sheet under it. Okay, so I did have to cut, there was a little strip around here that was holding this rubber backing kind of on. I did have to cut that, unfortunately, to free this button kind of membrane array thingy. So we're gonna have to figure out when I go to put this back together. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to set this rubber on top of the adhesive because it's stuck back down now. They probably install the buttons first, then use a machine with like an applicator to apply the adhesive perfectly, but I'm not going to be able to really do that practically. So we have a couple screws here. We have one Phillips here. Looks like a very, very fine Phillips. And two more underneath the adhesive here that we're probably going to have to score the adhesive to get to that. And one more in the USB port bay. And I think we're almost to the point where then after we get those out, then it's good enough that we can extricate everything. Let's just see. this one out. And where did that screw go? Okay, good. Keep all the screws separate just in case there are different sizes. One thing to note, the screens on these usually, they have a limited lifetime. They're early OLEDs. This is plenty bright, nice and bright, so that's good. It's kind of more the rarity nowadays, unfortunately. So I might have to do the same thing where I just create a slit, cut through the adhesive so that I can lift it. I might have to actually get an X-Acto blade and cut around those screws. I don't want to lift the adhesive because it's going to be impossible to apply perfectly flat. So give me 1 sec to do this. It's a bit fiddly. Okay, so if I just lock the focus, there we go. I cut away just enough adhesive that I should be able to unscrew these screws. Okay, and the final thing is you screw in the USB bay. So yeah, like I thought, that screw's the longest. I think the other screws, yeah, they're actually slightly different sized as well from the one that came out of the middle there. So I'm gonna have to keep track of all that. So I think we're to the point where this whole thing can kind of just slide out. And I don't know. Okay, it looks like the plastic mid-frame. Yeah, so you can maybe start pushing on the USB side just to get a little leverage. It's much safer though to start pulling from this jack because it is all mounted to the same plastic mid-frame, and it just slides very carefully. And at this point, the little tab for this guy just popped out, so we're gonna have to be careful when reassembling this. Probably best to just lock it and leave it on the end there. See, like I said, this is all aluminum, and we have the unit itself now. You can see the OLED display. I believe this is only like 96 by 32 pixels, something like that. It's not super high resolution. It's decently bright though, and we can see the battery, which runs a full length. And interestingly enough, the replacement battery is significantly smaller. I don't remember on mine. I thought my battery was longer than this one too. We're gonna have to see. Maybe they just don't make this size battery anymore, and this was the best they could get. Huh. But yeah, it looks like it's like the right size, but it's not as long, so maybe this will give less battery life. But at this point, barely anyone has these players anymore, so I kind of can't reasonably expect the batteries for this to be available forever. Okay, so if I remember right, this was kind of a pain in the butt. I think we had to remove the screen, lift it up, and basically held on with a bunch of tape, and then that allowed us to kind of finagle the battery out. But yeah, definitely need to start by peeling some tape off. Oh, here we go. Now they do kind of use the tape to secure part of the screen on, so we can probably just yoink that off and reapply it when we're good and ready. Oh, okay, so be very careful. The ribbon for the OLED is attached to this, so don't try to pull this all the way off, just free it from the battery. As you can see there, that gold bit, that's a ribbon for the screen. If you mess up, your screen's toast and you're not getting a replacement. Okay, let's see. Everything is adhesived on because why wouldn't it be? On mine, I remember there being a connector. I really hope they did not hard solder this. Looks like there's a bit of tape here. I don't really have to worry about the battery being charged on this because the whole reason why we're replacing it is it's completely dead. So I'm not too worried about shorting anything out while I'm finicking around. Okay, good. There is a connector for the battery just under this little bit of tape here. And the wires are just tucked underneath the board. I can just sort of lift it up, and it's one of these like Lego style snap brick things. Okay, so now we have it disconnected. Now I suppose just sort of have to get the battery physically out. I think there's just adhesive. That's the way these things usually go. Very careful not to puncture the battery, just using a pry tool to get in there. Separate it from this like steel strap is what I believe is sticking everything kind of together. There we go. There's just a bit of adhesive right near here, near the end here as well, near where this little chip is. Just go slow, don't put too much pressure. Okay, I'm gonna stop just short so I don't damage. It looks like there's a ribbon there. I can probably, yeah, just swing the battery out. And I should be able to just kind of wiggle it. And there we go, the battery's free. It is a little puffy. There is air that got in here. Well, it's not air, actually. Old lithium batteries, as they start like dying, and if you charge them, they'll actually produce hydrogen gas inside, and that's what makes them get all puffy and spicy. That's no good. So yeah, just before I do anything, let's compare the pinouts, because last time I ordered a battery, it was backwards, and it could have fried my unit. So the red is on the right side, black is on the left, black is on the left. Okay, so this is actually good. So this is wired correctly. Though the wire is super long, really doesn't need to be that long. So what I'm gonna do is just slide this battery in, and because it's so short compared, oh yeah, let's see. I want to see if this battery has a capacity rating. It says something 16 milliamp. It's underneath this recyclable sticker. Which, I mean, you can't really. Well, can you recycle lithium batteries? I think you can recycle the electrodes. Okay, so yeah, the battery is rated at 116 milliamp hours apparently. And this guy is supposedly 100. So, wow, okay. So these should have very similar battery lives, just it's a tiny bit less. But, so I guess this is 2006. It's date marked November 7th, 2006. So in about, what would that be? Like, yeah. So in about 17 years' time, they've managed to almost make the same capacity as this larger battery in this smaller one. So that's actually pretty impressive. So, I'm going to just sort of do the exact same thing as that, just wedge this in there. If you guys were interested, the flash chip that actually holds all the music is right in here. It's a large chip there. There's a processor, like a CPU, square right in the middle. That's just going to be the main processor that does everything for this. And there's the flex ribbon for the OLED, like I said. And there's a small ZIF connector in there. We're not going to disconnect the screen or do anything. I'm not going to touch the screen as much as possible because these things die like super easily and they're impossible to replace. So don't want to deal with that. I'm going to wedge the new battery in sort of near the end. Give myself a lot of room to stick the excess wire. And we're just going to snap the battery in and just sort of bundle the wire underneath the board. And we're going to put on the piece of tape that was there. Just make sure there is a cutout for the battery wires to sit in, so when you go to put it in the case, it doesn't get caught and cut. Because the case is metal, keep in mind, so if it scrapes, it'll definitely short something out. It was this tape, goes over and secures the battery connector on. It's not going anywhere. And So let's see. Next up, everything looks good. Wires aren't peeking out. We're gonna slide this in. I might have to finagle with this connector, or the end cap once we get it close, but I'm gonna start sliding it in. It might catch on the anti-static. Just go slowly and keep looking around as you're sliding things in to make sure nothing is obstructing it. And if it does, then you back it out again a little bit and you try again. Just go slow. Now the new battery might be a fraction thicker than the old one. Yeah, and you could see like that little nut that the screw goes into was kind of catching. So you just want to go slow, and if you feel resistance, stop and try again. So as we get closer to this, I want to start kind of getting this in place. So then getting that aligned, there's like a little tab. Trying to do that when I can't see what I'm doing, because I'm gonna have to do this off camera. This is too fiddly. I'm getting pissed. Give me 1 sec. Holy crap, that was annoying. Managed to get it in with tweezers. I'm just gonna lock that before I mess any of that up. And we are going to do the screws. I'm gonna do these outer ones first, and then I'll open the cap back up and do that last one. Now these are very nicely into metal inserts, so risk of cross threading is not as great, but just make sure you're not forcing anything. Make sure this end cap is aligned. If it's fully inserted, they should just go in. If you're having trouble getting the screws in, check to make sure that the holes actually line up with the aluminum parts where, you know, the holes for the screws go for the aluminum outer shell. Okay, and then this, then the very last screw. Sorry you can't see this, I can barely see this myself. So, have that on. Okay, and I just realized I forgot to put this. Crap. Okay, I'm gonna have to open this back up because I forgot to put that adhesive back on. I don't think it's super important, but I like to give things back the way that I got them. So give me 1 sec. I'm gonna get this adhesive strip back on the OLED, even though I don't think it really matters, but it's best to do things the right way. Okay, so we are back to the same spot. I stuck that tape back on. That protects the bottom side of the OLED, so even though I haven't powered this on, I really hoping I did not destroy the screen, but pretty sure I didn't, because I didn't feel anything like that fell off. The battery probably has no charge, so I'm gonna have to grab something. This would be a good time to actually test it. Plug it into a power source and make sure that everything still works. So give me 1 sec to grab USB and power bank and whatnot. Okay, so the moment of truth. Please work. Please work. Please work. This USB port is slightly recessed, so there we go. Okay, the screen comes on, it says access. Just going to turn off the overhead lighting, and you can see it's charging. This port inside the micro or mini USB port is slightly recessed, so not all cables will fit in, and some you actually have to kind of push and hold it there. I'm going to let this charge up for at least, I don't know, like 5 minutes or so. Make sure that it can run off battery power, that there's not something else that was wrong with it that made it look like the battery was, maybe the battery being dead was a secondary problem. But I want to make sure that this does actually power up at all. These models actually do have like a very quick charge mode. I think like 5-minute charge will give you like an hour or two of runtime. So me leaving this for a short while should be good enough as an indicator. You can see the screen looks fairly bright. And even when we put the lens on, it just sort of magnifies it. That's a pretty cool effect because it's a like a hemispherical lens sort of thing going on. So I'm gonna get back to you guys once I've tested that this actually will remain powered on. I mean, it might actually right now. There we go. So yeah, it has enough power to remain powered on. And if I press this, it'll shut off. So yeah, just turn it back on again. And there we go. It says it's low battery because, well, yeah, it is. I think these, you just let it shut off on its own. There is no actual, like, yeah, there you go. Just shuts off on its own. You can't manually force this off. I always thought that was kind of a weird thing Sony players do. Anywho, we should be able to, at this point, stick this lens back on, making sure the buttons are actually aligned. Okay, that's interesting. Forgot about this. So yeah, you actually do have to kind of mount this into here first, get the buttons in, then you kind of press it down, and then you can click this end in. So yeah, this is actually a real weird way of doing it, Sony. Why'd you do it this way? So yeah, you have to put the buttons in the front case first, and then you can click the little tail thing that I mentioned before down. And as a last step, when I actually fully get this back together, I'll heat it up again, the adhesive, soften it with the hairdryer, and then give it a good squish, and that'll make sure it'll reseal. But once you open these things, this I think might have had, I don't want to say waterproofing, it had water resistance. But once you open these things up, if you reuse the adhesive, you lose that water resistance. So I would basically just treat this as if it's not water resistant anymore. And unless if you can make or buy your new adhesive, these you're not going to be able to find replacement adhesive anymore. So you're just kind of stuck on that. Okay, I think it's to the point where we insert these little rivets. And they were, is that right? Okay, the cap goes on first. So is it cap, rivet, spring? Nope. The spring definitely has to go on now because the cap will block it. Okay, this took me more time than I'd care to admit to get working. So basically what you have to do is insert this into the first click, and you see how there's this there we go, this plastic piece here. The two legs of this spring have to straddle that. I kept trying to insert it sideways for some reason. For some other unknowable reason, I'm trying not to look at the service manual to figure this out. That would have showed me exactly how it's supposed to go. So it's supposed to straddle that. It then just sort of sits in there. This cap then can go in. And you might have to wiggle this, try to get it into alignment. Yeah, sometimes it sticks. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes it sticks a little bit too much on the one side. Once you push the hold switch all the way in, then you can flatten it and then insert the cap. And now, when I pull it out, it freely rotates and springs back to the middle, and then it can click all the way in and out without issue. So next up, we're gonna insert the pins. There's a little tape here. May or may not really stick now. If it doesn't stick, then I'm just gonna remove that, but push the pins, push them in, give them a good squish, and then we can wiggle this cap on, make sure this still wiggles, and then push the cap till it falls flush with the silver insert there. And yeah, like I said, I'm gonna heat this up, but to get the adhesive to stick a little better. Once you pull adhesive, it's never gonna stick as good as before, but heating it up gets it most of the way. And here you can see it is charging, and the wheel still works. It feels good. Check all the buttons, still pretty good. So yeah, that is basically it. I'll let this charge up in for a little bit and get back to you guys. I'll take you through the menus a little bit and show you how it looks. But yeah, give me 1 sec on that. So my silver one's on the bottom, and Sanjay's black one is up at the top there. Just keep these from shutting off. Yeah, you can see his screen's a little bit brighter than mine. Mine is probably older, and hence why it's probably a little bit dimmer. But yeah, they both work. His will be going back to him. Mine will be going back upstairs for me to use. But yeah, just want to show you, if I just unlock this button is like, you can step through. There is like a pedometer thing that counts calories, steps. You can program the time, and it has like animations. You press and hold, you can go into the menu, and here's where you can scroll through. So FM radio built in, settings, you can search, pedometer, time, stopwatch, I guess, music, etc., etc. You can go into settings, and all the menus are in here. Advanced menu. You can also rotate the display to be either way if you're left or right-handed. If we go into info, this is the 2 GB model. I believe mine's 1 GB, I want to say. I don't know what, that's a serial number, I guess. The firmware is version 1.0 on his. And yeah, just back out of here. Put it back into hold. I just want to see what firmware version mine is at. So if I go into menu, it was advanced information. So mine's 202. So mine's the this is only 512 megabytes. Okay, so his has 4 times the memory. Mine is an earlier model, so I don't know when this came out if this had the full 2 GB. Maybe they did. Maybe this is just a cheaper model. Serial number, and mine is running version 1.0 as well. Yeah, just interesting to know that. Exit and put it back into hold, and it'll go to sleep in a sec. Oh, you have to stop it from playing for it to actually shut off. Should shut off in a sec now. Okay, there we go. So that is how you fix one of these, what is this, NW-S205, 203 model MP3 players. These are getting really rare, really hard to find. I got really lucky on mine. I got mine, I think, for like 30 bucks a couple years ago because the battery was dead. And this was the only one that I could find in that price range. This is the 512 megabyte version, so that was the cheapest I could get one. And these guys, especially the higher capacity ones, the 1 and the 2 gigabyte versions, are pretty sought after. People are actually buying some of these. This and a couple other models have the same screen as the last high-MD Sony mini disc recorder that ever came out, which is the MZ-RH1. People buy these to take the working screens from these to replace the dead screens on the RH1. So these are getting even rarer, and people are hoarding these just for the screens, and they just, I guess, throw out or throw the rest into a drawer and never use it, which is kind of a shame. Really wish Sony would just make replacement screens for these, or if they had used just a commonly available off-the-shelf screen, then we could maybe have an option of getting a replacement screen. But as it is, unfortunately, whatever screen you got is whatever screen you got, and these do have a limited lifetime. So I'm going to get this back to Sanjay, and I will test actually a little bit, make sure audio sounds okay and that the battery holds battery life. And once I'm done with that, I will send this back to him. But yeah, huge thanks for him sending this in for to make an interesting video. I know the last one I didn't really go into a lot of detail, and a lot of people kind of criticized me for that, which is fair enough. But this is a very expensive thing, and opening the first one fully on camera without full concentration is kind of risky. So I like that I got a second. I like that I got a second try at this. Interestingly enough, I just realized this end cap can go on in either position. It's supposed to go with the text on the back though, but it'll let you do it in either orientation. That's interesting. Anyway, yeah, so it's fun actually getting to take a second crack at this and show you guys every step of the way. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.